I have a dream. That's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and believe. You know what I want. So I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's
Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to Hounds to Heroes. Today I have Caitlin and Sebastian with me today, and here's a little bit of information about them. So today we have Caitlin with us. She is a 23-year-old who has POTS. She also has 13 other illnesses. She got Sebastian in July of 2022. He was a rescue that she owner trained. Sebastian is a German Shepherd Husky mix. He's a cardiac alert, DPT, item retrieval, and light guard work. Plus, he does migraine detection and much more other tasks. She had to find a new career due to her health reasons. Through finding Sebastian, she fell in love with dog training now. She's a full time content creator. She also has a health and wellness business for Sebastian. Sebastian loves learning new tricks and also has learned to love the fact that she films. She has a following on TikTok of 19.7K. She also has an Instagram with 7,133 followers. She even has her own YouTube channel with 881 subscribers as well. Let's get started in this interview, shall we?
So, where have you had some issues with any kind of fake service dogs, like whether that be Walmart, Target, out in like a restaurant or anything like that?
We've had a couple run-ins. One was at a restaurant in downtown Atlanta. I had gone in with like a big group of friends after running a 5K, and I'd had a little bit of issues getting him in, and they were like, "Oh, he's a service dog." I said, "Yep." They let us sit down. And it's not a dog friendly restaurant. So originally they were very accommodating. They loved him, could really tell that he was actually a service dog. Well, another group came in afterwards and they had their dog and they said, like, is that a service dog required for disability? The guy said yes. And so they let him go sit on the balcony because they wanted to sit inside, and I think they had a feeling that this dog wasn't a real service dog. So they went and sat him outside, and so that was fine. It like didn't really matter. Then another group comes in with their dog and they were like complaining, really upset, pointed out that my dog was in the restaurant. And then so they ended up sitting this guy outside, and their dogs both attacked each other. And then when they came back in, because they had to like leave to get from like the outside seating area to leave, they had to come back in through the restaurant. And at that point, their dogs were riled up and then started trying to lunge at Sebastian, which luckily our table was far enough away. Sebastian just laid there and like looked at them like they were crazy. Thank God. They finally got out. All of the staff came over to make sure I was okay, make sure Sebastian was okay. And I was like, yeah, but just so you know, like you guys can ask two questions actually, not just is it a service dog. You can also ask what tasks it's trained to perform, so that way you have a little more legit service dog. People are going to be very quick to be able to answer like this is the task that it performs, and if it's not, then they're going to be a lot more hesitant. But I've also heard, and I don't know if this is like fake service dog handlers getting upset, but when we went to the aquarium a few weeks ago, I thanked the guy for asking the two questions. Like they have a little printout that asks it and you just have to answer it. And I said, "Thank you so much for asking." He goes, "Thank you for not yelling at me because everybody fights us on these questions." And I was like, "Oh, well, like you're allowed to ask them."
Yeah, it's been my experience that the people that have an issue with it or the people that are most likely faking the issue because they don't know how to approach the questions because as service dog handlers, we know the laws like the back of our hand because we have to. We have no choice but to know them so that we are prepared when someone asks us the questions and we know what to answer to them. And the people that don't study on it, that don't know anything, they just hesitate and they're like, "Well, you can't ask me anything. How dare you ask me something?"
Exactly. And then we had a run in at the first time we went to the Georgia Aquarium, actually, and I've talked to security since then, so this has been handled before I tell my story. We went in, it was me and my other friend that has a German Shepherd service dog as well. And we went in, we were like, went through the little security check. They told us to go stand off to the side. And I was like, okay, they're going to ask us two questions. And so the head of security comes out, or the head of security for that day comes out, and she asks, "Are they service dogs?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Okay, what tasks do they perform?" I answered, my friend answered, and she goes, "Okay, well, you need to prove it. Like, where are their papers?" And I said, "There's no papers in the United States. That's like it's not a thing." And she goes, "Okay, well, where's your doctor's note?" I said, "I have one, but legally I don't have to show it to you because I'm not required to have any documentation for you." She goes, "Okay, well, you need to like prove they're a service dog somehow. So why don't you drop their leash and ask them to do something?" So in order for us to go to the aquarium that day, I had to drop his leash and ask him to sit. But The problem with that, one, is that's not how this is supposed to work. And two, what if my dog trained well enough to be off leash?
Right.
So I ended up talking to like the actual head of security, and it all got resolved and whatever. But that was actually one of my first ever big run-ins, public access wise.
So the next question I have for you is, what is those times were the worst experience to being denied somewhere?
I would say the aquarium, probably because it took like 20 minutes to get through this, and by the time it got done, they were also closing early that day, so we only had 20 minutes to go through the aquarium, and we had like driven an hour, driven through traffic in Atlanta, paid for the tickets, and so it was really frustrating.
Did it send you into a medical episode at all, or was it just kind of like anxiety a little bit?
I wouldn't even say it was anxiety. I mean, it was a little anxiety. It was more just frustrating because I was arguing with this lady and she just wasn't having it.
I hear you on that. How does a service dog affect your day-to-day life in good ways and bad ways? So what's the good things about having a service dog every single day, going everywhere with you, doing everything, and what are the bad pros about having a service dog with you?
The good things, it's giving me a lot of freedom back. Before him, I was fainting 10 to 12 times a day. I was kind of like bedridden, homebound. Didn't feel comfortable going anywhere unless I had somebody with me. Yeah, just wasn't like, I was basically just staying at home all the time. And then I got him and he's given me a lot of that freedom back. His tasking's been a game changer. I'm still working on the medication everything because medications are always so fun to try to figure out what works for you, so that's definitely been a big pro. Another pro is when I did live in the city, scary dog privilege, which is not technically a service dog thing, but like it is a thing, just dog handler wise. So scary dog privilege has been kind of nice in certain circumstances. Gives me something to do. He gets me out of the house because I'm constantly training him or making sure that his needs are met. Gets me out of bed in the morning because I need to let him out and feed him. Cons is that I got a very big dog as a service dog, which is great for things like mobility, but it can make things hard, like if you're going in an Uber and they need to sit on the floorboard, or on plane rides when they need to be like only in your foot space and he takes up the entire foot space, so then where do your feet go? So I would definitely say the size can be a pro and a con. Another con is that you get a lot of attention on you, unwanted attention. I've learned to ignore that, so it's not really something I think about much anymore. Yeah, I would say those are the big pros and cons.
Okay, cool. So the next question I have for you is, do you have any advice for anyone that is wanting to train their own service dog or getting a program dog? What is your advice to them about getting a service dog in general?
Well, so I didn't get a program dog, so I can't speak a lot to that. But one thing I would say is be careful who you meet up with and be careful who you get as your trainer. And be careful who you take advice from. Just because they have a big social media following or just because they successfully own or train their own service dog does not mean that they can train your dog. It doesn't mean they know how to train your dog, and it doesn't mean they're a dog trainer. It means they're a very good video editor. They've shown you some great highlights, but that doesn't make them a dog trainer.
Right.
And so I would definitely vet your trainer, look to past experience, see where they've worked, how long they've been a trainer. Have they shadowed under anyone? Have they always done service dogs, or are they someone like me who is starting out with just like basic puppy, basic obedience, like your home dog training, and then like building up because they're building the foundations and the knowledge and learning all that they can. And then as far as meeting up with people, be very careful who you meet up with. Be very careful who you take advice from, because this community is great in some ways and toxic in others. So just be careful who your friends are.
So much agreed to that. What is the most rewarding thing about having a service dog? So what's the best thing about having your dog breed?
Yeah, I would say because he is a German Shepherd Husky, he loves to work, he loves to learn new things, and so it was very easy. Okay, it wasn't very easy, but it was easier than I think having a different breed necessarily would be, getting him to learn new tasks and new tricks, because it was pretty much, this is what I want to learn, and once we figured out the way that clicked for us, like he learned it very quickly. So it definitely made like owner training a lot easier, I think, on me. And I was very blessed that he's a very quick learner and wants to work and wants to learn.
Good. The next question I have for you is, with that time that you had an aggressive dog kind of come at your dog, how did your dog handle it, and was there any type of training that had to be reset for him? And if your dog has ever been attacked by a fake service dog or a real service dog or any dog in general, did you have to also retrain him into that at all?
Yeah, thankfully we have not been lunged at, barked at, or anything at a distance where the dog was able to really actually make contact with Sebastian. The one in the restaurant, he just stayed laying down and like looked over at them, looked at me, and was like, okay, cool, whatever. We've had a couple dogs come up and went to lunge, but I was able to either step in front or they weren't close enough to actually do anything. So luckily I have not had to retrain or rebuild any confidence, just because we're pretty cautious when I see other dogs of not really going near them, regardless of if they look like a fake or if they look like a real service dog. I just have a kind of assume every dog is not going to behave in this instance, and assume that I need to just keep my distance to protect my dog. And that's kind of the approach that I take regardless, even if it's the dog could look like the most amazing service dog and I'm still going to keep my distance and stay away.
Feel that?
So luckily, so luckily I haven't had to retrain anything. There hasn't been really a fear period that we went through, and he's pretty chill. So he just kind of, if we see something like the restaurant, he just looks at me and is like, what are we doing?
Did you like train him to be like that, or was that just like a natural thing that he just did?
It's definitely not natural, because for him, we did a lot of subtle training. And so I think that helped. But if we're out walking and he sees another dog, there is definitely some having to get focused back on me, because he does want to go play. But part of that's also he's 2 years old. So like he's still sometimes puppy brain, even though technically he's not a puppy. But
All German Shepherds are puppies.
right. So yeah, he's just friendly. So I would say, like, if he's already walking around, it's a little harder to like keep the focus, keep him from wanting to go play, and like keep him in work mode. But if he's laying down and already settled, he's done enough settle training that he pretty much stays there.
Awesome. So my next question for you is when there have been people out there saying that emotional support animals are service dogs, and I'm putting air quotations into that, and they should be allowed in stores and to bring them everywhere with them. What is your opinion on that, and what do you think should people know about emotional support animals?
Oh boy.
That's the big one everyone hates.
Yeah. In my opinion, I don't think ESAs should be allowed in stores or out in the general public, or like have the same access rights, because they don't go through the same level of training. And I understand that they can help anxiety. I understand that they are supportive. But I mean, I could call my 15-year-old dog that's aggressive and like has a bite history an emotional support animal, and then take her out. If ESAs had public access rights, take her out and put everyone at danger, because she's not at the same level of training that Sebastian's at.
Right.
But I think that there's also of the miscommunication between like what a psych service dog is versus an emotional support animal, and I think sometimes that line gets blurred.
Right.
And I don't think that COVID kind of opened up the world of public access for emotional support animals for a bit. For instance, they could go on airplanes. And then when the pandemic ended and they took that right away, I think that also didn't help with the blurring of the line of what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed, and who has rights and who. But in my opinion, any dog, any cat, any animal could be an emotional support animal. They don't have to go through any level of training. And so
I completely agree with you on that. I've had people ask me those kind of questions before too, and everything. So, my next question for you is, so people have been saying that we work our dogs too hard and we take our dogs for granted. How do you feel about when people say about, oh, you're a dog abuser for this?
My dog is spoiled rotten. He gets what he wants. I say that his toys and his treats are payment, and probably spend too much money paying him. I I mean, I'm so grateful for him. And I also have days where, if he doesn't want to go with me, like last week, usually he loves to go get in the car. He loves to work. He loves going with me everywhere. Like he would rather go than stay home. And when I said, okay, let's go, he ran upstairs and went and got in his crate. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. You're not feeling it. I'm not going to force you to work. Like that's going to, one, make him retire probably earlier. Going to make him hate his job. And like I have days that I don't want to work either. Like I'm not feeling it. So I'm going to respect that. Let him go sit in his crate while I go out and about. But I do think there's a balance of working versus not working. And there's ways to, go out, but make sure you're rewarding your dog, even if they're not in training anymore. Make sure that you're giving them that praise of, yes, good boy, good job.
Right.
And making sure that you're doing other things. Like for us, we do dog sports, so that on Saturdays during our sports seasons, he's getting an off day because I don't work him on the same days that we do sports, other than if we're going out to lunch. Because so I think finding something that your dog can do that's like more hobby than just doing service dog work is also really good for them.
Awesome answer to that. I've had different answers to that one, and that one is spot on.
Well, and I think that him being a service dog, I'm even more like aware of when something happens to him and take him to the vet probably prematurely. But in my head, it's like, oh no, there's something wrong. He needs to go to the vet, make sure he's okay, because I don't want to work him if he's injured.
Right.
Versus like it's the same thing sometimes would happen to my like family dog. We'd be like, oh, okay, she's gonna be fine. But I feel like there's a line that I don't want to work him if he's not okay, and I want to make sure that he is okay, and the vet can tell me that. So I definitely probably take him a little prematurely sometimes. But on that note as well, along with the dog abuser comment, I've also gotten a lot of comments that are like, oh, you rely on a service dog, you should just go off yourself. That's pathetic that you rely on a dog to live. Like, why would you put that dog? You're just abusing the dog. You're a pathetic piece of that
Crap.
word. Yeah, crap. Yeah, so definitely not my favorite comments.
Yeah, I've had people say the same thing to me. It's like just because we have dogs doesn't mean we don't deserve to live like anybody else. It's just like you looking at somebody with a wheelchair or an oxygen tank. They need that stuff to survive. We need these guys to survive. Only just because for me with seizures, I don't know when I'm going to have a seizure. I have 2 little kids, so if I'm out and about somewhere and I'm alone without my dog, I can have a seizure, and my 16-month-old and my 5-month-old could be sitting in a car by themselves while I'm seizing on a floor, which people are going to freak out about because they're like, oh my gosh, call the ambulance. And it's better to have a dog there to say, hey, look, she's been through this before, leave her alone, like she'll be up in a minute, she'll be all right, than to have just be by myself and smack my head on the floor. So my last question for you is, what does a service dog mean to you? Like having him in your day-to-day life, how has having him progress your life made you even better as a person and a service dog handler and a trainer?
Yeah, so for him, at the time that I got him, I had just dropped out of nursing school due to my health, and that was what I wanted to do since I was 5 years old. So when I dropped out, I had no clue what I was going to do. My health is not at a point where I can work a regular 9 to 5 because that requires usually going into an office. And I just can't do that because with cyclic vomiting, I'm throwing up 2 to 3 days every other week. So through owner training him, I fell in love with dog training and was like, oh, like dog training could be a cool career path. So I ended up finding a job with a lady who's been training for years. And so he really, one, gave me my freedom back to like leave my house and go places and like give my life back. But then also opened up a whole new career path of like falling in love with dog training and now working for somebody who's training me and teaching me everything she knows, but also content creating, because I used to make silly YouTube videos in high school of like when my friends would hang out. When I was younger, I was super into the iMovie where like it was like the storyboard and you just had to put whatever video it said, and like I would make them so intense. Like I would make my sisters run up slides and try to climb trees, and I've always loved making videos. So when I got him, I had decided that I wanted to share the ups and downs of training my own service dog, because all the accounts I was following and all the accounts I was looking at only showed this amazingly trained dog that knows everything it's doing, but were never showing it messing up, or like didn't show the whole process of training it. They showed a training session, but the dog like already knew what it was doing. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make videos that show on our good moments, showing us messing up, showing the struggle of finding a way to train something that works. And it's evolved into just sharing literally everything about our life and giving me now a platform to just create content and be a dog trainer and content creator, and I love it. So
I'm glad to hear that, because that's kind of what because the service dog community is so toxic, and they sit there and as soon as your dog messes up one time, they're like, oh, fake service dog, not a real service dog. And I think that that's where people need to understand that dogs are also animals. They're not robots. They can't just keep doing everything spot on, even though if they're trained, fully trained or not, like they're still animals at the end of the day. And showing the good and the bad of training a dog to where he's gonna mess up, and it's okay if you mess up, because he's an animal. It's just like if I mess up, I'm human. I'm gonna mess up no matter what. They have the right to mess up just as much as everybody else.
well, and I think these bigger influencers who are in the service dog community and influencers who are only sharing like their dog doing everything perfectly right, they're honestly feeding into that. And it's not just the service dog community, it's the general public as well. If your dog messes up in public, you get glares, you get comments, people think like it's not a real service dog. And when they're on social media and they're seeing these people with hundreds of thousands of followers posting only their dog being exactly perfect, it's just feeding into that of service dogs are these robots who are perfect 100% of the time, when that's just not the case. And so I think that sharing, like I've shared a video the other day where we were training at Walgreens and we were working on his heel. And I had caught on video, we were in the pet aisle naturally, and he, instead of focusing on me while healing, was sniffing the stuff as we walked by. And then as soon as we were like away from the dog stuff, his focus came right back on me. And I put that in my little highlight of our training session. And everyone was like, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, this is the reality. And it's okay that like your dog is not in a perfect heel all the time. And I was like, well, he was still in a heel. But yeah, because that's the reality. Like, that's what our day looks like. If we go into sniffing something, as much as I work on it, that's what's happening. And if I don't share this moment, he's not.
Right. And I completely agree with that. And I do applaud you for, showing that the bad sides of also having a service dog when it comes to like training and they're messing up and everything. Because I do believe that if we start showing that service dogs also can mess up as well, the public will also learn how that dogs aren't robots. They're going to mess up, and it is what it is. Just move on forward from it.
That's the hope.
I want to thank you for doing this interview with me. I know you have no idea who I am, and you just out of the whim decided to do this interview with me, and I greatly appreciate you for doing this. And I want everyone on here that's following us to go follow her YouTube channel, follow her TikTok, follow her Instagram, whatever y'all have. Follow this girl. She is an amazing person. Her dog is so adorable. I love her dog so much, and I will definitely be following her and also be supporting her from now on and everything else. And if you guys haven't already, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.
Speaks of Jay, this is Jim, and a friend. I think one day it'd be good if I wanted to get it. Dad, like